So, what did you miss at Jubilee today? Well, you missed a surprising number of brave souls who came out in the frigid cold, who managed to get their cars started and their legs moving, and they gathered. We gathered to hear the story of the Transfiguration. Jesus takes Peter and James and John and climbs up the mountain top, and up top, well, a cloud descends. Light is evident. Jesus' clothes become white as white can be. Jesus speaks with Moses and Elijah. Peter is overwhelmed and wants to build huts, little temples, that they could stay there forever. Oh, and the voice of God identifies Jesus as the Son of God. It's overwhelming. But we couldn't really be of one mind on the meaning of the Transfiguration, so today Etienne Lesage and I held a debate. Be it resolved, it is good to be here. A line from the Gospel, a popular hymn as well. Etienne argued that in fact it is good to be here on the mountain in church, because God provides us comfort. God provides us mystery and amazement. God meets us and gives us hope, making the world dazzling, giving us God's own presence in God's Son, Jesus. And it is good to be here. It is good to recognize and to celebrate and to be nurtured and fulfilled by this. I naturally took up the opposing view and argued that the story is too hard to be believed. How do you know that's Moses and Elijah? It could just be any old guys in beards. I argued for the trip up the mountain makes this whole experience inaccessible. If you don't like climbing, you can't get there to the experience. But that is often how it is in church too. We often make church inaccessible. We meet at strange times. We use strange language. We have customs that are not always obvious or inviting to the outsider. So really, it's not so good that we're here. I argued that this is a repetition of the baptism story anyway, so what do we need it for? We had some fun back and forth arguing. I argued that there's no point in being here when the real work is out there, down the mountain, outside of our church. Etienne came back in his rebuttal, answered my challenges, and yet insisted that it is God's love that matters, and it is God's love that we carry. And I came back in my rebuttal and suggested that perhaps Jesus didn't change at all, that Jesus isn't transfigured. It's Peter's eyes that are opened. Jesus hasn't changed. He's the same as he was at that moment of baptism when again we heard the voice of God say, "This is my Son with whom I am pleased." But in fact, Peter's eyes are opened and he recognizes who Jesus really is. In the same way that loved ones, people close to us, sometimes take on an aura. They become different to us when we recognize them for who they really are. The stranger that becomes a friend. The homeless man who becomes a real human being. The friend who becomes a lover and a companion for life. Suddenly there's a moment in which we see them as we've never seen them before. They haven't changed. We have. And so I had to concede that perhaps it is good for us to be here in church, up on the mountain, to have our eyes opened that we might recognize God's presence. But it's just as important that once those eyes are opened, we get down from the mountain into the valley, out of the church into the world, so that we can view the world with those open eyes and recognize God's presence and recognize that it is good to be here wherever we are. That was our debate. We didn't actually look to see if anybody won. There was a lot of applause, but in the end, we shook hands, we hugged, and Etienne and I agreed that it is very good to be together. It is very good to be at Jubilee, and it is our job to take what is good with us and carry it out into the world. And that's what you missed today at Jubilee. Hopefully we won't miss you next week, because we'd love to see you. God bless.